One, did you know that WNBA superstar Caitlin Clark is the beneficiary of tall privilege, pretty privilege, white privilege? I bring you the experts, the opinion of the experts on The View. Two, Reid and Patrick Mahomes have Harrison Butker's back, while Oregon sees yet another trans athlete dominate the girls. We're going to break that down, plus her new book, Swimming Against the Current, with Riley Gaines. Three, who's the perfect wingman? And it's not P.J. Washington. It's not Kyrie Irving, even though the Dallas Mavericks have won Game 1 against Pete Hegseth's Minnesota Timberwolves. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page, and always on demand. Just hit subscribe at Apple or Spotify. Leave a comment. Leave a 5-star review if you find it so earned. And if you're enjoying the Will Cain Show on Facebook, it is now hundreds of thousands are on a daily basis. Hit share. Bring your friends into the community in the comment section here on the Will Cain Show. We're also growing from scratch. We're growing from the starting blocks on YouTube, from zero, but getting a bigger audience every day, and that's an audience coming together at the Will Cain Show on YouTube. There's a link right under this live stream in the text description. You can just hit subscribe, hit like on any of the videos, leave a comment, and join the community. Subscribe to the Will Cain Show. Hey, two-a-days, tinfoil, young establishment. Do you think Mavs win an amazingly exciting, sleep-deprive-inducing Game 1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves? Do you think if I call Pete Hegseth, he will answer?
Yeah.
I think so.
No, he's a busy man. He's got a very tight schedule. It's 12:02. He's probably at a big meeting right now.
Yeah.
So real quick, I don't think he will, because I texted him. He hasn't texted me back yet. So.
Well, that's because you
Maybe
leave
it's
him.
different.
Oh, you texted him.
Let's bring that up if he answers.
You leave him off the show rundowns. That's why.
Why did you text Hegseth?
No reason. No, it's for the next week. You're not here.
He's talking smack.
No reason. I'm unaware of the secret affair between Tinfoil Pat and Pete Hegseth. Well, I'll tell you what. It is 12:02 Eastern Time, 11:03 now as the clock ticks over one more minute. Central Time, 9:03 Pacific, at about 12:45 Eastern. I'm going to see if he'll pick up. It's a 50-50 proposition with Pete. He is a busy man, but I'm going to give him a call, see if we can talk a little trash, rub a little Mavs victory of the Wolves in, see if he picks up 12:45 with Pete Hegseth. But we got a big show today. We have Riley Gaines on. Riley, not just gaining in popularity, but really firmly establishing herself as an important figure in the cultural shifts, the fight against some really malevolent and malignant cultural shifts in America. She's got a new book out, Swimming Against the Current. We're going to talk about that book, plus some things going down in current events, including a federal judge that has gone before Congress seeking approval after Joe Biden's nomination, who seems to think that it's just for a 6'2" serial convicted rapist to be placed into a women's prison. That and much, much more coming up in just a moment here with Riley Gaines. But let's get after it. Let's start with story number one. If in a very competitive industry in terms of who can, on a daily basis, be the most idiotic. In the stupid Olympics, cable news interests really honestly sweep the podium. I am very well aware that I'm a part of this industry, but I like to try at times to stand apart from cable news because it's a real big competition into idiocracy. We saw a Grammy, Emmy, Oscar nominated entry yesterday from The View. The host of The View, notably Sunny Hostin, along with Whoopi Goldberg and many others, they took on the problem the problematic popularity of WNBA superstar Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is, of course, the former Iowa Lady Hawkeye who set records and is quite honestly revolutionizing women's basketball. She's now made her way into the WNBA, where she has brought with her something like 3 million people, record ratings for the WNBA. And instead of this being celebrated, we have to start analyzing how this might be problematic. And the ladies of The View had no problem in identifying the privilege of Caitlin Clark. It's not superstar privilege. It's pretty privilege. It's tall privilege. It's white privilege. I give you the medal frontrunners in the stupid Olympics. The View.
I do think that there is a thing called pretty privilege. There is a thing called white privilege. There is a thing called tall privilege. And we have to acknowledge that. And so part of it is about race, because if you think about the Brittany Griners of the world, why did she have to go to play in Russia?
Because they wouldn't pay her.
Because they wouldn't pay her.
Because they wouldn't pay, not because she was black, but because they didn't believe in the WNBA.
This is part of my point. So now, Caitlin Clark is bringing this money, these sponsorships, we hope, into the league, and other players will benefit from it. But I do think that she is more relatable to more people because she's white, because she's attractive.
Just a spectacular performance in the stupid Olympics. I've had some friends, people that I respect, say, "Will, don't call things stupid." And I respect that it's just unnecessarily ad hominem, and it is reductionist. And I appreciate that. Take the arguments on as they are, but I also can't let decorum and taking the higher road divorce me from reality. I can't, if someone deems it offensive, decline to notice that the sun rises in the east. And when a statement is so utterly not just stupid, but more importantly, as we transition to substance, hateful and ugly, we have to recognize reality. Let's start with how hateful and ugly it is. The View. It really has become a hen's nest of venom. In this instance, what we see here is several individuals reducing a human being into her most superficial characteristics, attributing her popularity to her skin color, to her height, to her physical appearance. And in doing so, they've managed to ignore reality. The reality is, as I said, that Caitlin Clark owns the record for most points scored in women's college basketball. She's revolutionizing the game at not just the collegiate, but soon, I'm sure, will be the case, at the professional level in the same vein as Steph Curry. She's unguardable. She can shoot from the logo. She sees passes, distributes the ball. She is an absolute superstar in the WNBA, and that has nothing to do, honestly, with not only her looks or her skin color, but it really has nothing to do with her height. Caitlin Clark is quite simply a superstar, and that makes her popular. Let's address some of those different types of privilege. First of all, pretty privilege. If we're being real, I've never heard someone say that she's hot, Caitlin Clark. She's not benefiting from some kind of Anna Kournikova effect. You remember Kournikova, the women's tennis player who was good, and that should always be pointed out. Once you arrive at this stage, do you know how good you are? Has anybody ever raised any children in a competitive sports environment? To even arrive at the stage, you are in a 1% of the population proposition. But Kournikova wasn't perhaps as good as her hype, as her stardom, because she was beautiful. And there are examples of that. But that's not, in my, anecdotal research, something that is being said or giving to the popularity of Caitlin Clark. Tall privilege. Okay, maybe, yeah, in society, but don't we have to kind of look at circumstances and how they present themselves? Is Caitlin Clark popular because she's taller than you, your average female? Because in the WNBA, where her popularity is being compared, I think the point is against other previous and current WNBA players, she's not tall. She's 6 foot. I mean, I don't know where that puts her in the average of WNBA players. Obviously, within men's players, that would be below average. In fact, I just read an article in The Athletic this morning about the evolving heights of various positions in the NBA. If you're curious, 6'3" for the point guard, 6'5" for the shooting guard, 6'7" for the small forward, 6'8" for the power forward, and 7 foot for the center. I mean, there are girls in the WNBA approaching, what are they, 6'8", 6'9"? Caitlin Clark's not tall in context. I don't know how she has tall privilege. And then let's address white privilege. First of all, to reduce her to her skin color is not just ugly, it's not just venomous. Again, recognizing the sun rises in the east, acknowledging reality, it is racist. Yesterday, we had, I think, one of the most not controversial, but taboo reality discussions that we've had here on the Will Cain Show. You should go back and check it out. It was with Jeremy Carl, the author of a book called The Unprotected Class, How Anti-White Racism is Destroying America. What you see here is anti-white racism. Like, no one else's race, and let's set aside the stupid dichotomy that the world has been reduced into black and white. Latino, Asian, nobody else's race is constantly pointed out as a reason to diminish their accomplishments. And that is exactly what's being done here by Hostin. She's diminishing the accomplishments and the popularity of Caitlin Clark because of her race. And that, to me, is quite clearly racist. Now, let's indulge the thought experiment. Let's say, okay, what if Caitlin Clark's race is contributing to her popularity? In fact, I've had that conversation here on the Will Cain Show in the past, and I've contended to you, even if it is. So what? Why is that problematic? In that people, especially in sports, are attracted to, meaning gaining their fascination, getting their attention, getting their ratings, getting their popularity, to anomalies, to outliers. Do you think Danica Patrick was as good of a race car driver as the attention that she warranted or earned? No, but she got it because she was an anomaly. She was an outlier, a female race car driver in a field of men. Tiger Woods, also superstar. In a discussion with Jack Nicklaus for the greatest of all time. But his race certainly was a part of the national conversation and part of what gained attention for Tiger Woods. We had the conversations openly, and those conversations weren't problematic. They were celebrated. It was, look at Tiger Woods. He's bringing bigger African-American audiences to the viewing public for golf. Not only that, Tiger Woods inspiring a generation of black golfers to embark upon a sport that was traditionally white. Tiger Woods was and is an anomaly, an outlier. And that's always what we see in sports, physical outliers. In their physical attributes, certainly the case in basketball and football, and in their accomplishments in every single sport. And so even if Caitlin Clark's race played some role in getting her attention or popularity, why is that problematic and not to be celebrated in the same way that it is with Tiger Woods? And the answer to that is because everything has to be so impossibly stupid and hateful and divisive. That seems to be the project, to reduce us to our tribal instincts and tear us apart and divide the United States of America. Let me give you another story going on right now. I want you to take a look at a headline from CNN. It's a repurposed article from the New York Times. This is about Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. New York Times, another controversial flag spotted outside a Samuel Alito property. So the original entry in this big story is that outside of Alito's home, he flew an upside-down American flag. Now what you're looking at is on his vacation home, he's flying what's called the Appeal to Heaven flag. It's a pine tree on a field, a white field background. Now, the argument that they're making on CNN and in the New York Times is this reveals Alito as an insurrectionist or a sympathizer of insurrectionists. Why? Because some people on January 6th, and by the way, this is news to me, some people on January 6th flew the flag upside down. Some people on January 6th flew the Appeal to Heaven flag. News to me. And to be quite honest, I'm pretty plugged in on American history, and I happen to like flags. You can't see it in my studio, but I'm surrounded by flags. I got the Tennessee, United States, Texas, Longhorns flag. I've got the Texas 1824 flag here. This is the revolutionary flag of the Republic of Texas. I've got the Come and Take It, the Gonzales flag. I've got the original Bonnie Blue Texas flag behind me, Montana, the Gadsden flag. I've got flags all over me. I never heard of the Appeal to Heaven flag. So I had no idea that now Alito has been outed as an insurrectionist. And by the way, The Appeal to Heaven flag, it's a Revolutionary War flag. It was flown by George Washington's unit in the Revolutionary War. But now, because someone, or let's say half a dozen people, brandished that flag on January 6th, it has to be reduced. And not just the flag, American history increasingly, which, by the way, was founded from insurrection, but American history reduced to unpatriotic. That's the point. And they're going to be successful in this project if they don't receive some pushback. I remember years ago on ESPN, I had this debate with Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman about the Confederate flag. The argument that I made at that time was the Confederate flag isn't exclusively and therefore only displayed by racists, that it also has some cultural connections to heritage, to the South. I mean, I'm objectively, factually correct about the history of the Confederate flag. It doesn't mean it hasn't been also used by racists, by the KKK. But look, Leonard Skinner incorporated the Confederate flag. I think the country band Alabama incorporated the Confederate flag. The General Lee, shown on network television, incorporated the Confederate flag. Was that because all of those institutions were saying, hey, I'm anti-black? Or were they saying, hey, I'm proud of my heritage in the South? I'm going to say that not only our goodwill and benefit of the doubt, but an accurate understanding of people's motivations in history would show you, oh, there might be multiple meanings to this flag, but no longer. It's this, even me acknowledging that could be deemed controversial. And so all now that the Confederate flag can mean is racist. And everyone now knows that, by the way. You'll never see that flag in any other context. No way a band from the South would embrace the Confederate flag. And that's the project's going to reduce the Appeal to Heaven flag. And by the way, it doesn't stop at the Gadsden flag. It doesn't stop with the sign of distress, an upside-down American flag. I saw a TikTok video this morning of a guy on a beach, you know? I don't know where it was, in Florida, maybe California, on a beach, a liberal offended by the fact that people had planted some American flags on the beach because the American flag is now a sign of MAGA. And so you erase, you reduce everything, including our history, not just our symbols, but the history itself, into something inherently unpatriotic. Everything divided. That takes us back to Caitlin Clark. The competition to be stupid in cable news is a competitive one. It is hard to rise to the top. But by dismissing Caitlin Clark's superstardom as pretty privilege, as tall privilege, as white privilege, what you have done is you have put yourself as the leading contender for not just the gold, but also the silver and the bronze. In order to ensure their victory, the members of The View went on to say something like this in support of the WNBA. They said, some of these girls are better than what you're watching. Some of them are even better, implied here, than the NBA. No, she's a superstar. But Caitlin Clark is not better than anyone in the NBA. No one in the NBA. You know why I know that? Otherwise, she'd be playing in the NBA. So congratulations to The View. Congratulations to the New York Times. Actually, sympathy to the New York Times, because in this news cycle, you don't make the podium. Despite reducing American history and symbols in an effort to get rid of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito to the most divisive things in America, you didn't manage to make the podium in a news cycle where The View swept the bronze, the silver, and the gold. It's tough, but they did it at The View, the stupid Olympics. Riley Gaines coming in hot next. You don't want to miss this on The Will Cain Show.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Listen to the all-new Bret Baier podcast featuring Common Ground, talking to lawmakers weekly from opposite sides of the political spectrum about the issues of the day and how Americans can find common ground in a politicized world.
That's just not happening on Capitol Hill. It takes leadership, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Along with all your Bret Baier favorites like the campaign, the candidates, the all-star panel, and much more. Available now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
The XFL and the USFL merged together to create one powerful spring football league called the UFL.
Here we go.
These players are going to play hard-nosed, intense football, passionate football.
And caught. Touchdown. What a catch.
They're going to ball out.
DC, Memphis, or Michigan, Houston, the United Football League. This week on Fox.
Kick it off, baby. Let's rock.
I'm Dana Perino, co-host of The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom. Join me for my podcast, Perino on Politics. This week on Perino on Politics, colorful Colorado has gone from red to blue. But will the state be considered safe for President Biden in 2024? Joining me this week for a closer look at the politics of the Centennial State and what it means for 2024 is the host of The Ross Kaminsky Show on KOA Radio, Ross Kaminsky. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcast.com.
Chiefs head coach Andy Reid and superstar quarterback Patrick Mahomes have his back, kicker Harrison Butker. Should you place a 6'2" convicted serial rapist in a women's prison and yet another trans athlete, a dude, dominates the girls this time in an Oregon high school track meet? All that and more coming up here with Riley Gaines. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, Fox YouTube, Fox Facebook. Share, subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Come hang out with us here on the Will Cain. So that brings us to story number 2, which is the author of a brand new book entitled Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. Riley Gaines joins me now on the Will Cain Show. Hi, Riley.
How you doing, Will? Thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored to be on with you.
Oh, I always love having you on, Riley. I know you were hanging out. You were listening to what I had to say about Caitlin Clark. You got a new book about fighting for common sense. What do you think about dismissing Caitlin Clark as pretty privilege, tall privilege, white privilege?
I had seen the article. I hadn't actually watched the video yet. I had no idea that they said tall privilege. Oh my gosh, how remarkable is that? I was mind blown by that, that's for sure. I think it's astounding that you have progressive and liberals who have said for so long, why won't anyone watch the WNBA? Okay, now Caitlin Clark emerges and people start watching the WNBA and they say, well, she's just pretty tall and white. That's what this is. It's astounding. Caitlin Clark has not gotten the coverage and the attention that she has rightfully gotten because she is white, tall, or pretty. It's because she's a phenom. I mean, just some of her accomplishments. She's the Big Ten all-time scoring record. She's the leading Division I women's career scorer. She, of course, holds all Iowa records. I mean, the list goes on. It's the same thing watching The View. It's the same thing that Jamel Hill said, saying that Caitlin Clark is problematic. All Caitlin Clark has done is sold out arenas, set TV viewership records. She's brought millions of new eyes to women's collegiate basketball and now on to the WNBA. So saying she is problematic, I mean, to me, it sounds like she's the problem solver. And speaking to Jamel Hill, this is no surprise coming from her, a professional and longtime race baiter. While at ESPN, I remember she once stated that rooting for the Celtics was like saying that Hitler was a victim.
Yes.
And she said this because the Celtics were viewed as white. She's labeled President Trump as a white supremacist. She called for a boycott of the Dallas Cowboys and their sponsors after Jerry Jones demanded that his team would respect the flag, speaking of flags and symbols, and the anthem. So all of this to say, I don't think we should be surprised the direction that we are seeing the media, people like Jamel Hill, take this topic. But let's be very clear. Caitlin Clark has gotten the coverage that she has gotten because she's amazing.
It is fascinating, isn't it, that so many people who accuse the rest of the world constantly of being racist cannot see the world but through the lens of race. Any issue presented to them is reduced to black and white. And I shouldn't move on, Riley, without pointing out there was another privilege mentioned, I think, both in that LA Times article quoting Jamel Hill and on The View. The fourth bit of privilege beyond pretty, tall, and white is straight privilege. That her popularity is also due to the fact that she's not a lesbian, with some significant percentage of the WNBA being gay, that now here's this straight white girl comes in and she gets all of this attention and popularity. It's
amazing to me how they can say this when we have a media outlet or media outlets, we have academia, we have corporate America, who consistently and constantly prop up people for not being straight. And even so, this is what the viewers want to see is Caitlin Clark. And again, I don't think it's to reduce it down to her physical attributes or the fact that she is straight, white, tall, or pretty, which might I just add, I think anyone's pretty next to someone like Brittany Griner. But besides the point, it's mind-blowing is what it is. I don't think there's a lot of words for it. But I think the American people see this for what it is. I really do believe that. Anyone can watch that clip of these women on The View and call this exactly what it is. And it's exactly what you said. It's inherently racist. It does no good for anyone. It doesn't do good for Caitlin Clark. It doesn't do good for the WNBA. It doesn't do good for black people who are playing in the WNBA. This is harmful to every single person involved, and the American people see that.
And this undercuts the idea of white privilege. I saw you retweet this from Barstool President Dave Portnoy. He said, if it's her race, then why aren't Diana Taurasi, Paige Buckets, Cameron Brink, Sue Bird, Ella Deladon, Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Kelsey Plum more popular? All of those WNBA stars, by the way, white. But they haven't received the popularity and stardom of Caitlin Clark. So what is it? Could it be something beyond her race? You know, I love your note of optimism, and I do believe you're correct when you say the American public sees beyond this. I think that common sense does, and I think most of America retains common sense. But whether or not it's pockets of insanity or elite levels of insanity, Riley, we keep seeing things that would make us think we're losing common sense in America. And I give you yet another example, this time from the state of Oregon, where a sophomore boy running in a track meet, I don't know. I want to be careful. I was going to say dominate. I don't actually know if he dominated, but he won. He won the state track meet against females. And I don't know, and I want to be careful. I saw you on Fox and Friends, so you kind of referenced it loosely, but I don't really know how often this is happening anymore, but the anecdotal incidences of it happening just are getting to be undeniable. It's clearly happening in Connecticut, in Oregon, in state after state, where men are entering women's sports and winning titles.
Of course it is. And I do know how often this is happening because I receive messages daily, every single day, from young girls, from parents, from coaches, from just concerned everyday common sense Americans who intuitively know that men and women are different. I receive messages daily, just like this story out of Oregon. You said you didn't know if he dominated. At the state championship, he didn't necessarily dominate. Yes, he won. But the meet qualifying for the state championship, he won by over 50 meters is how much he won by. This is a boy
in the 200,
who had,
right?
In a 200. This is a boy who had never run track and field before. His background actually was in weightlifting. He had started running that season and wins a state championship. Keep in mind, these girls are not scrubs. Several of these girls are committed to Division I colleges to continue their athletic and academic careers. I believe the girl he beat out in the 200 is going to Vanderbilt to continue running. So look, an SEC school, these girls are not scrubs. And they got beat by a boy who had only just begun running. But again, we can't be surprised. It's the same story virtually every single time. And this is what I said on Fox and Friends. It's a seemingly mediocre, less than average boy who would be just that in the men's category, but then decides to go to the women's category and becomes a record smasher. We're not seeing this happen the other way around. We're not seeing girls decide to identify as boys and go into boys' sports and dominate. We're not seeing girls identify as boys or women identify as men going into men's prisons. No, this is happening, and it's most often adversely affecting women.
Riley, forgive me. I think you and I have talked about this. Remind me of your events at Kentucky. What did you swim? What were your primary events?
I swam freestyle and butterfly.
Sprint.
Mid-distance sprint, yeah.
So like in the fly, did you do the 100 fly? In free, did you do the 100 free?
I did the 200. So in the 200 butterfly, I swam a time of 1 minute 51 seconds, which is the SEC record. It makes me one of the fastest Americans of all time.
What? Just out of curiosity, Riley, what's your 100 fly time?
I believe my 100 fly time is 51, maybe.
Okay. Do you know 100 free time off the top of your head?
47.
Okay. I was hoping for my own ego and some illustration of the difference between men and women that my times, I was a high school swimmer, walked onto a water polo team, might be comparable, but you smoke me. You smoke me because you're not just, maybe I'm less than mediocre and you're way more than average when it comes to girls. I think so my 100 fly was 54 and you said you were 51 and my 100 free was probably like a 49 and you said 47. So,
I say we race.
Is. Riley smokes Will.
Let's
now
find
there's
pool,
a difference
Will.
there's another gap, not just our gender gap, Riley, is the time gap. You're very young, I'm very old, and times get faster as time goes on. You know what I mean? Like that's just swimming. I think track's the same way. You can't compare times from 20 years ago to times today. It's weird. I don't know what that reflects because there's not that many technological advancements. There was the suit thing, for a while, but it's just human beings getting bigger, stronger, faster.
Totally. I am glad that I am done swimming now because you're right. It's a whole new era of speed and skills. That's for sure.
But we did swim the same events, free and fly. Okay, so I was going to ask you this when you said I get messages all the time. Can you just give me an example? I'm curious. Like you said, it's happening all the time. I don't doubt that. But you're very inside this entire story and this entire movement. And you've become a voice not just of reason and strength, but you've become, I'm sure, a safe place for many people who are experiencing out there in America to turn to talk to, and ask for help. So I'm curious what they say and what kind of messages you're getting, and just give me an example of what you receive.
Let me just read you a couple. These are just from over the past, few days even, not that long. This one says, "Hello, my name is blank. I was encouraged to reach out to you after I competed against and lost in a head-to-head sudden death playoff at a professional golf tournament to an athlete who is a male. I was appalled by what I witnessed and the differences that occurred between the regulation holes and the sudden playoff. The boy, on average, hit it about 10 yards longer than me throughout the entire competition, and over the last two events, I've played in 56 holes total with this boy. So I believe I have a high understanding of his swing speed, his ball flight, and distances. Yet when the playoff began, suddenly he began swinging the club 10 to 15 miles per hour faster, increasing the length of his shot by 30 plus yards, giving him an advantage he had not previously had during the prior holes. He loves to claim that his distance has greatly decreased since undergoing surgery and hormone treatment, but the only thing proven to me was that he is scaling it back, swinging only 70% because it's still plenty long enough, yet keeps people silent. Then when desired, he can turn it up to 100%. That's one. This one right here says, "Hey, I need advice. I'm a freshman at blank high school. I play basketball, volleyball, soccer. Sports are one of my favorite things, and tonight in a basketball game, our varsity team just lost because they have men playing on their girls' team. I don't know what to do. We get yelled at when we stand up for ourselves, but I know we shouldn't be silent. What should I do?" I could keep going. Well, again, these are just this week.
Wow.
It's every single day. And it's the same theme. Girls who want to stick up for themselves, girls who are terrified, and understandably so, because they're threatened. They face threats and risk and intimidation from either their schools, administrators. It breaks my heart. That's why I so fiercely and so passionately care about this topic. Because again, I'm done competing. You couldn't pay me to get into a pool. I would probably drown if I started swimming again. People say, "Oh, you're the swimmer." I say, "No, I am the swammer." That is what I am. I do not actively swim.
You'll
this
come
is
back.
past tense. I am a swammer. I don't know about that, Will. But again, this is why I care so much. There's a website, and it's called shewon.org. And we help contribute to the instances that have been accounted for of women losing out on opportunities. And it's over 960 medals and trophies that have been taken from women by less than average men.
960. There's your anecdotes for you. Right. And thank you for sharing those with us. By the way, again, as a lifelong swimmer, you'll come back. And I mean, everyone wants nothing to do with the pool when they're done. It's an awful sport, to be honest. I mean, you're isolated, cold, and pushed to physical exhaustion twice a day. Yeah, and the coach yelling at you, you're done when you're done. But then one day you're going to come back, and maybe you'll swim the Navy SEAL swim with me in the summer, and that would be awesome, by the way. I would love for you to do that. This is the transition to your book. The book is called Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. I'm going to ask you, because I think you address all of this in the book. You also talk about, it's in part of memoir, you talk about your life. So I'm going to ask you this question in the context of the book. That last email or text or message you received said, what is your advice? So what is your advice? What do you talk about in Swimming Against the Current?
Well, I appreciate you asking this. And it's something, again, I hear every day from everyone, not limited to just female athletes. People saying, what can we do? How can we help push back? There's certainly a part in the book that speaks to, yes, it speaks to women. Yes, it speaks to parents. It speaks to, again, coaches. It speaks to our spiritual leaders who we so desperately need. It speaks to men. I think so often we ask ourselves the question of, where are the feminists? Which is a very valid question. And again, don't get me started on that. But I think just as often as we ask ourselves the question of where are the feminists, we should be asking ourselves the question of where are the men? Why has this battle fallen almost entirely on the shoulders of young girls and women? So there's certainly parts in the book that address this in a much longer form. But what I will say, what we can do as everyday people, is one, first and foremost, and this has been the most central, at least in terms of something I had to understand in my life, is to trust God's calling for you. I did not feel prepared for this role, certainly not. But I understand now that he doesn't call those who are prepared, he prepares those who he calls. So answer when he calls. Secondly, we need parents who are willing to defend their kids. Again, the messages I receive from parents, they almost always say, well, I work in corporate America, there's just not a lot I can do or else I'll lose my job. Do I have to care about your own child more than you do? If this isn't a hill you're willing to die on, a sacrifice you're willing to make, then what in the world is? So we need to see parents who are willing to defend their daughters, defend their kids, teach their sons how to be strong men. All of those things and more.
By the way,
in the book.
How do they do that, Riley? Do you know, it's been, I think, something that I've said. I know my co-host, Rachel Campos, stuff you said. The way you do that is not just raising your voice, but you got to walk off, too. You got to walk off the field and decline to participate under these circumstances.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I've changed my mind on this. I didn't think that at first. Obviously, I competed against this boy. I didn't think it was fair for me, someone who had worked my entire life, 18 years of my short 22-year-old life at that point, the sacrifices that I had made, the dedication, the time, the hours, the grueling practices. I didn't think it was fair for me to have to compromise in that way. I thought legislation will fix this. That's what I thought, truly. What a naive thought, to wait for people to do the right thing unprovoked. We would be waiting for forever, Will. And when I changed my mind, I remember it pretty vividly, was when the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act was introduced in the U.S. House by Representative Greg Steube, and it fell entirely on party lines, meaning 219 Republicans voted in favor of protecting women and girls in sports, and all 203, every single last one of them, mothers and fathers of their own young daughters, all 203 Democrats voted in opposition of protecting women and girls in sports. And that's when it hit me. If we waited for legislation or policy makers or these elected bureaucrats and judges and officials to do the right thing, like I said, we'd be waiting for forever. That's when I decided and changed my mind. It is up to us. If you are faced with competing against a boy, don't participate in the farce. I think people, and we're getting to that point, we've seen that, and we've seen it be effective. There was a jiu-jitsu tournament down in Georgia, 2 boys, set to compete against the
Jiu-jitsu.
girls. And yeah, this is jiu-jitsu. You're like putting heads between legs and squeezing and all kinds of stuff. But 4 girls said, we're not getting on the mat with a boy. And within 21 hours, not even a full 24 hours, NAGA, which is the National Grappling Association, changed their policy and said, okay, boys can't compete with the girls. We saw it in West Virginia recently. 5 brave 13-year-old middle schoolers. They decided, and again, they reached out to me and said, Riley, are we not worthy of calling ourselves champions? Why do we have to fight for second place? How in the world does that not break your heart? 13-year-old girls have very loudly and clearly heard the message that they aren't worthy. Tragic is what that is. But they decided they wouldn't compete against a boy who had been taking hormone blockers since he was 8 years old, which is what I would describe as criminal. Nonetheless, they all stepped out of the ring, track and field. They were throwing shot put, and they just won a court case, which is huge news. So all of that to say, the most powerful and effective way to say no, enough is enough, is by not participating.
I think it's what you have to do, and it's a convenient perch from which I say that because I'm not in the field. And I know, like you said, you competed against Leah, but you know, in your sport, and I'll consider it my sport as well, and other sports like track, I sat there and I thought to myself, well, you know what you could do is you could run your race, you could swim your race, and the reason why is it's such an individualized sport, and you know this, Riley, you compete against yourself often as much as you compete against somebody else. You're always trying to better your own time, right? And so I sat and thought, if I'm in that situation, maybe I swim. And maybe my goal is not to beat Leah Thomas. My goal is to hit a PR, right? Another personal record or break some other time record. And then when it comes time to accept the medal or whatever, no, I won't participate in that. I won. I saw what happened. Here's my time. It was the fastest time among girls. But other sports don't have that same type of, circumstance. They don't have that same type of situation. Certainly not jiu-jitsu. And so, I think even though I kind of put myself hypothetically into the situation that you were in or any other track and field or swimmers or whatever, really, honestly, you got to just say no in the end. Otherwise, it's always going to be this deal where there's a fake winner and a real winner. You know, it's just got to be a real competition.
Totally. And to your point, I understand as well it's easier said than done. Again, I can't even
because of all the
believe I have to
effort.
sit here.
You know that. All the effort you've put in. And then you're like, and I'm going to opt out now? I've been building all these years to this meet, and now I'm not going to get to swim because some dude is in the middle lane?
Right. And the threats and the risk that these girls face. You heard in just that one message that I shared, we're reprimanded if we say anything. I know that's real. Again, I face that. But there are no grounds for any university, any institution, any entity to actually take action for you silently or peacefully or whatever you want to call it, freely expressing your opposition to competing against a man. That's what people need to realize. And that's what the girls in West Virginia sued over. All 5 of the girls who stepped out were then banned. They banned the girls from girls' sports rather than the boy. No, that would make way too much sense. They banned the girls for expressing their opposition and by conceding their match. But then they went on to sue and they ruled it was entirely unconstitutional and viewpoint discrimination. And these girls were allowed to compete. So know your rights, understand that this is the right side of history. We hear the word all the time, inclusion and compassion and empathy. Let's be very clear. It is not inclusive to ask a young girl to step aside and allow a man onto our podium. That's not what inclusion is. No, that's exclusive. And it's exclusive to the very female athletes who Title IX or the women's sporting category was created to celebrate and protect. And it's not compassionate to ask a young girl to undress in front of a fully grown, fully naked, fully intact man. That is not what compassion is. So I think it's important to understand, one, our rights, but two, how our language has become entirely corrupt.
Well, I love what you said about inclusion and exclusion. It's a point I've tried to make. It's like inclusive of who? You know, you are excluding all of the girls who now have competed and trained their entire life from reaping the benefits and the spoils of their hard work. Well, I have you today. I want to hit two current events, and they're not unrelated because we talk about common sense. Common sense certainly is lost among, I guess, our elite circles. I saw you posting about this on X, this hearing for a federal judge the other day where she granted the request based upon her a trans man, trans woman, so what was a man's request to go into a woman's prison. And this guy was convicted of rape twice against a minor, and then also subsequently pled guilty to child porn, trading in child porn. And after all that, this lady who's being asked as a Biden nomination to be approved to the bench as a federal judge granted this guy, based upon his constitutional rights, the ability to go into a women's prison. This judge was raked over the coals by Senator Kennedy and Senator Cruz. But it's such an illustration. This is an educated person. Maybe that's the problem. She went to Brown. But this is a person that we're entrusting with judgment, a judge. And she would choose to put a convicted rapist man into a women's prison.
Disgusting is what this is. I encourage everyone to go watch that video. Senator Lee, Senator Cruz, Senator Kennedy, they all had a really great line of questioning for this judge. But again, this is not unique. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Indiana, New Jersey, Ohio, California, of course in California. In recent weeks, in California alone, over 1,600 men applied to be women to get into women's prisons. And they're being granted access into women's prisons. And it's the same story. It's these men who are convicted of heinous, awful things, majority of the time, some sort of sexual violence, violent crimes, child pornography, kidnapping, things of that nature. And they're getting into these prisons and they're impregnating these women. You know what they did in California? It was actually on Super Bowl Sunday. The correctional officers worked overtime. They came into these all-women's facilities, all-women's institutions, and they installed condom dispensers and dental dams. And it's because now in these all-women's prisons, AIDS and HIV are running rampant because these male inmates who are coming from men's facilities, again, they're in these women's prisons and they're impregnating and raping these women. So now by installing condom dispensers, not only are they allowing for sexual intercourse, which is not supposed to be allowed in prisons, it's as if they're encouraging this behavior. In New York, in their all-women's facilities, they have posted placards speaking to pregnancy prevention. Now, why would they have to speak to pregnancy prevention in an all-women's facility? These federal judges, we've seen it across the board. They are failing at their most basic duty, and that's upholding the law. We've seen it in the 10th Circuit. We've seen it in the 4th Circuit. Watching these judges on this panel was almost comical if there weren't real consequences to their actions.
Right. The other current event I wanted to hit with you was Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker. It's a week old, what he had to say. We saw the backlash to what he had to say at Benedictine College, but now what we've seen is head coach Andy Reid and quarterback Patrick Mahomes have his back. That seems big.
It's huge. And I think it's unique because these are two men who have spent an ample amount of time. I mean, Patrick Mahomes said he's known him for 7+ years. Andy Reid, obviously, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, spends time with Harrison Butker. And they both said, this is an amazing person. Look, we are judging him by his character. No, we don't necessarily agree with everything he says or any of the other teammates, what they say all the time, but we can speak to his character. And that's what the media has been missing out on. I was so stunned. I watched his speech, and I have my own thoughts about it. Of course, I agree entirely with his messaging. But, it's a college graduation. Was it the right time to say it? I don't know. He did refer to women as homemakers. Is that probably the best verbiage? Probably not. Also, the fact that he is someone who makes a substantial amount of money in this economy. Not all women or household families, I think both parents have to work in many cases. And so I have my own thoughts there. Entirely agree with his message. But I was stunned to see this get the media coverage that it did. I mean, a week, like you said, it was the only thing on my timeline. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, this wouldn't have gotten any coverage, to be totally honest with you, and understandably so, because this was a devout Catholic speaking at a Catholic institution, invited to speak at this university to share a message heavily based and rooted in Catholicism. I was stunned to see the coverage that this got. But the leadership we saw by Coach Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and I would imagine several other teammates, a part of the Chiefs, that was huge.
So, Riley, a little bit earlier, and we'll start ending it up here, but a little bit earlier you said, I want not just women, but men to stand up against all of this insanity. I'm just curious, as I was listening to you, are you frustrated? I mean, to a much smaller degree, I know a little bit of what your position is. I know what it means to be one person inside of an institution who's saying something and knowing that many more people agree with you and being a little frustrated, well, why don't you say something too, you know? I know, and I've had that experience at a much smaller level. You're doing this at a much greater level. And I was just curious listening to you when you said that. Like, do you feel a little personally frustrated that you're doing something, taking a position so rooted in common sense, but requiring so much strength because it probably does feel lonely?
Beyond frustrated. At first, when I took this stance and I had people reaching out to me, renowned athletes, male and female, who we all know, they would message me and say, thank you for doing what you're doing. I can't say anything because I have sponsorships and I have endorsements and different partners. I can't say anything, but you keep taking those arrows. I thought to myself at first, I was very humbled by this. I was honored by this.
Right.
But
cool at
I
first.
very quickly lost that sympathy. We are governed by some of the weakest, morally bankrupt, spineless cowards. And again, every realm, the NCAA, even the president of the NCAA at the time, Mark Emmert, who, of course, now the president is Charlie Baker, but the president during all this national championship stuff, Mark Emmert, he publicly released a statement saying he unequivocally stood in his decision to allow Leah Thomas to swim with the women because it was based in evolving science. But privately, he tells me, Riley, you keep fighting, you keep going. Excuse me, the audacity to say that as if he's not the one that we're fighting. Same thing in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. When I testified before, I've testified before Congress and Senate many times, but when I testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Cory Booker comes up before the hearing and he says, of course a Democrat, he says, look, I played football at Stanford. I totally know where you're coming from. I get it. And then he gets on the other side of the table and starts grilling me. Weak leaders at every level in this nation. So all of that to say, I'm not only frustrated, but I'm disheartened by the people who are unable to say something as simple and easy as men and women are different.
So well put. So, Riley, swimming against the current, fighting for common sense in a world that's lost its mind. It's out now. You talk about a lot of these issues. You talk about your life. What else should we know about swimming against the current?
Yeah, it was a whirlwind, a fun process to be able to sit down and write this book. As you said, it speaks a little bit to my background, the family that I come from. It speaks to not national championships. It speaks to, of course, the unfair competition, the locker room aspect of what we faced, the silencing that we faced, ultimately how we got here, the broader picture of what this means, because make no mistake, this is so much bigger than just not getting to hold the trophy on the podium, so much bigger than just women's sports. It speaks to the trajectory of where we're going, and again, what we can do as everyday people.
Riley, how old are you?
I just turned 24.
Oh my God.
I feel
the
old.
reason I can't believe that. And here's the thing. Okay, you might feel lonely. and you might feel like you're the target of so many arrows. I think you're also the target of a ton of compliments.
For sure.
And I know you're aware of that. And I think at such a young age to be showered with compliments and with arrows can create a warped view of the world in an individual, and sometimes people can't be ready for these things, like not just ready for compliments and arrows, but also ready for the depth of exposure. And I think it's, the third time you and I have spoken, the second time we've spoken on camera, maybe. And I mean, here's yet another compliment that you'll have to take in stride. And that is the depth and breadth of your ability to speak to not just this one topic, which you've kind of become the voice on, but an understanding of so much more is way beyond remarkable for someone 24 years old. And I wasn't, and this is my job, and I've always had a passion and interest in, the law and law school and philosophy and understanding things, and all of that was built into getting to a point of view that it takes a long time in life to be confident on that ground. And I'm blown away, honestly. Yeah, okay, you got the trans issue locked down, but my feeling is you could probably speak intelligently and thoughtfully on any host of issues and stand up to a grilling as someone who has testified before Congress, you would hope. But I don't know. I think that's one more compliment that I want to offer you. I'm just 24 years old and so thoughtful in the bottom line, just so thoughtful. And I imagine swimming against the current is going to give us all some insight into how you arrived at this place at the age of 24. So I think everybody should go buy the book.
Well, thank you, Will. That actually is probably my favorite compliment I've ever received. So that's very sweet. And like you said, the support, the encouragement, the kind words, it's tenfold anything negative, without a doubt. So thank you.
Well, keep it up. Who knows where this life is going to take you, but we can start by understanding where your life got started in swimming against the current. Thank you, Riley Gaines.
Thanks, Will.
All right. I think that's a book you have to get. Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. I lost my mind last night. Game 1, Mavs over Wolves. I'll tell you what. Let's call Pete Hegseth and see if he will answer. Let's talk trash live next on the Will Cain Show.
The world of business moves fast. Stay on top of it with the Fox Business Rundown. Every Monday and Friday, Fox Business reporters, anchors, and hosts will bring you beneath the stock market speculation and boardroom drama to tell you about the biggest business stories of today. Whether you're on Main Street or Wall Street, Fox Business is invested in you. Listen to the Fox Business Rundown every Monday and Friday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Is this the start of a NASCAR dynasty for Ryan Blaney? Ready to go to work. A redemption tour for Chase Elliott? Is Denny Hamlin a ruthless competitor or a villain? Is it time for a Bubba Wallace breakthrough? Ross Chastain to get back to breaking stuff? Or is this the makings of the wildest ride you'll ever witness? It's all of the above, and it's about to go down. Yeah! Let's go! Woo! The Coca-Cola 600 from Charlotte, Sunday at 5:30 Eastern on Fox.
I'm Charles Payne. Listen to my Unstoppable Prosperity podcast so I can get you making money right now. Whether stocks are hitting new all-time highs or in free fall mode, opportunities abound. So why are so many potential investors still sitting on the sidelines? In a new season of my podcast, I'm going to get you in the game. After 38 years on Wall Street, I'm ready to impart some lessons and get you invested in the greatest wealth-generating machine in history. Listen anytime, everywhere at foxbusinesspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Cassandra Kolosky says on YouTube, they 100% need their own league for all of their genders and identities. Speaking about trans athletes. Jen Wall says, yeah, why aren't men getting mad at these idiots making men look bad? I'm told a lot of women today joining the community in the comments here on the Will Cain Show on Facebook and YouTube, streaming live at foxnews.com. And Roxy405 says, Riley is right. Threats of being excluded from their sport. Soon it will be all boys. Where's the inclusion? There's also, apparently, Spring and the Willisha, Two-A-Days Dan, Young Establishment James, and Tinfoil Pat. There's also apparently, as we're always welcoming of, want to be a community of an engaged conversation, a lot of people who take issue with Riley, Two-A-Days.
Not taking issue, but just kind of saying that she's grabbing a spotlight, which is not true at all. Like kind of grasping onto one topic that, and kind of getting her, 5 minutes of fame kind of thing, which is just not true at all. And that conversation you had with her was amazing. And it's just kind of, I think it's a little trolly is the thing. Yeah.
Well, here's what I would say to that. Like, this is the issue that not only is she passionate about in the abstract, but that has directly affected her life, and she's become a resource for others. And by the way, also, don't ignore the fact that really, I don't know if it'd be actually no one else is standing up in this way, but no one else is leading in the way that Riley Gaines has taken on this issue. And if that has resulted in some attention for Riley Gaines, not only good on her, but God bless her, because it's going to come with all this negative attention. We talked about the compliments, but the arrows that she is taking in this fight. And I'll tell you something. That thing I said at the end, look, I'm 49 years old. I've been doing what I do for a living now for, I've never counted it up, but 15 years. And before that, look, I went to law school. Like, persuasion, communication, understanding, a basic curiosity about the world, a thoughtfulness, and yet a passionate dedication to some principles and ideas is something that you're not born with, that you have to develop. And I'm not done. I'm still changing. I'm evolving. And I am blown away by what I said, that she is 24 years old, and I don't think she's a one-trick pony. So you can say she's grabbing the spotlight on this issue. I get the sense that if I did another hour with Riley and it had nothing to do with the trans issue, she would either know a lot about it or have the self-awareness to say, I don't know about that issue, which is a similar sign of something what I'm getting at here. Wisdom. I have learned in my life the difference between intelligence and wisdom, and they are not the same thing. And a lot of young people are smart. That's a fact. There is intelligence all over the board. There are 20-year-olds way more intelligent than me. But I have really worked and tried to become more wise. And that doesn't go hand in hand with intelligence. And when I listen to Riley, I'm just like, this person's on the path to wisdom. And I don't know where it's going to take her, but I promise you it won't be a one-trick pony on this one issue. I mean, it might be for a while because she's passionate about saving this issue, but this person could be a leader on any host of topics if she continues to develop a really early indication of wisdom.
And no one else was taking the reins. No one else was taking the reins on this issue too, and she took that and ran with it, and good for her, and it's great.
Yeah. But by the way, as is the case, I'm not mad. If you feel that way, bring it into the comments, and we'll have the conversation. This is the place. Our comment section is the community. If you disagree,
it's an interesting.
That's the community.
It's a very interesting place.
Our comment section.
Yeah, the live chat.
Well, it's also a place. It's also a place of development and wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one way.
It's also on its growth path.
Yeah.
It's also on its growth path. But we love toddlers and adolescents and elderly alike, meaning in whatever stage that we all are in our path to wisdom. We love it all here on the Will Cain Show. Look, man, I'm a toddler. I'm an adolescent sometimes, like I am right now. Watch this. So last night, this is the big showdown that we've all been waiting for, or at least two of us have been, and that is Will Cain and Pete Hegseth, co-host of Fox Friends Weekend, who refer to themselves, at least one does, in the third person. Wolves Mavs Western Conference Finals. Lifelong Wolves fan Pete Hegseth, lifelong Mavs fan me. And I'd say going into this that the Wolves are the favored team. But last night, it was the Luka and Kyrie show. It was two superstars taking over the game. There was a lot of other important players like Derek Lively. And let me tell you something. The Wolves were good. They were good, and I walked away from that going, these are two good teams. And this could be a hell of a series. But I think in the end, like, the Mavs were just the better team. And so because of that, I started texting. And I started tweeting a little bit, And I started getting my shots in. And I thought, okay, don't celebrate too early. It's one win on the way to needing 4. But then I thought the better of that, and I thought, hell no, live in the moment and enjoy this talk trash to Pete Hegseth. So I thought, let's just try this really quickly. I have no idea if he'll answer. I think it's 50-50 at best. I'm going to call Hegseth.
I think he answers.
And let's see. Let me put it on speaker here. You think he's going to answer?
Yeah.
I don't think he will. You can hear it ringing, right?
Yeah. Wow. If he says
this is going to be embarrassing for him and me.
Yes.
Yo.
Hey.
You're live on the Will Cain Show.
Oh my goodness, no, I'm not.
There's a 50-50 proposition on whether or not you would answer.
Of course, I should have expected.
Called it.
Well, what do? Do I talk trash first, or do you defend yourself? How do you feel? Big win over the Wolves for the Mavs.
And big letdown by the home team that looked a little tired, took a lot of threes. You know what? We know what your vulnerability is now, Will. Listen, we're down 0-1. I get it. But we didn't play big. We didn't play strong. Our big guys played and hit some shots. But if we really utilize our big guys the way that we can, I like our chances. I still like our chances in the series. But this is coming from a homer.
You know how he's serious? He used the word utilize. Whenever someone decides, I'm not going to say use, I'm amping up the ante here. I'm going with utilize. They're real serious about what they're talking about.
You know it. And now, do you come out of it? First of all, you know what we're reminded of last night?
What?
That Luka and Kyrie are really good basketball players.
Yes.
I want to write off Kyrie like he's in the back third of his career. If Kyrie plays like Kyrie's always been, Kyrie is a international superstar. Playing with another international superstar in Luka. And so you got two studs like that, and they play that way, even if they're not hitting threes.
Yeah.
That's a tough team to beat.
I do think this is the Kyrie reminder tour. I'm reminding you, I'm reminding Anthony Edwards, I'm Kyrie Irving. He said that. That was his motivation. He saw Anthony Edwards, after you beat Denver, say, I got Kyrie. And Kyrie's like, oh, you do? Okay.
Well, that's what Kyrie's needed. Kyrie doesn't want to play 82 games. Kyrie doesn't even want to play the first round of the playoffs. Kyrie doesn't really even want to play.
That's not true. That's not true.
If you got a little bit of motivation, though, for him, that guy's a stud.
All right, here's how I feel, Hegseth. So I went into this. You texted me. Let's be real with everybody listening, watching. You texted me that you're going to, did you say smoke us or blow us out? Not one game, the series.
I didn't say blow it out. I said something taunting. It wasn't blow you out. No way.
Here's what I think. I think that everybody here today is saying, oh, the Wolves are tired. The Mavs played one day before the Wolves. So I think you threw a really good shot. And I think the Wolves are a good team. And I think you threw a heavy punch. You guys hit like 50%. Well, it went down as the game went on, but 50% from three, and the Mavs shot the worst they ever have from three. And that's going to even out, and that's scary for the Wolves. I don't think the Mavs are going to sweep. I don't think it's going to be a gentleman's sweep. I think the Wolves are really good. But now, if I'm you, here's the biggest thing I'm concerned about. We're doing serious basketball analysis here. I'm worried about Anthony Edwards, and here's why. That dude was gassed. I don't know about the rest of the team. That guy was gassed because he was chasing Kyrie Irving around the entire game. And if he has to chase Kyrie around on defense, what's that do to his offense?
It's a great point. I remember you probably thought of it too. I'm watching the fourth quarter, and we're at like the 8-minute mark. And I'm going, where is Anthony Edwards? Where is he?
Nowhere.
Like he was
tired,
sitting on the bench because I didn't realize because I made a fatal flaw. I agreed to host Hannity, so I had to watch the first half of the game on the side of an iPhone and hosting Hannity. Okay, so I'm in the commercial breaks. I'm watching what I can. So I didn't catch all of the rhythm of the first half. You know what I did catch, though? the Wolves blew the last minute of the first half. Could have had an 8-point lead going into the second half. Instead, had a 2-point lead. They gave up 3-point play to Kyrie. Yeah, it was a giveaway.
Hey,
it was a bad
you're
loss
emotional.
for a team that-
I've watched you watch the Vikings. What did you do last night? Did after Hannity is over, or even during the commercial break, are you yelling at the screen? Did you throw anything? What did we do last night?
Yelling. I demand silence at certain moments. But it was really bad at Game 7. I mean, I kicked everybody out of the room. I was yelling. But I got one kid who thinks he's a Mavs fan. You know this, Will. I got one kid who liked Kyrie when he was the Brooklyn Nets. And so then Kyrie goes to Dallas, and suddenly he's a Mavs fan. And I told him, I said, if you cheer one time, a word comes out of your mouth, okay? I said, you want to cheer, you go in the other room.
Who is that?
Okay?
Is that Rex?
That's Jackson. No, it's Jackson.
Okay.
And he sat in silence, probably internally clapping and screaming for the Mavs while I watched in agony as the thing went down.
I got you, Jackson. You're my guy, Jackson.
Yeah, he's with you. He's with you. He just has to suffer in silence.
All right, you're a good sport. You're a good sport. I need to rub it in today, and we got 7 games here, buddy. We're gonna.
As long as you do it every time, and there's gonna be some Wolves dubs in there, and we're gonna talk after that.
All right, I'll let you gloat on the 1 or 2 dubs you get in this series.
Good man.
All right, see you, man. Thanks. There you go. He answered.
He sounded upset.
He answered.
He was getting a little defensive. A little defensive.
Pete is a when I was younger, my friends used to call it a Dow Joneser, but they would talk about it with girls like, she looks great, she looks terrible. You know, they did a bit on that on Seinfeld even. How come I can't put my arms around this girl? She's a Dow Joneser. Pete's a Dow Joneser in his energy. Like, he's all in, he's all out. He's mad about the outcome, he's fine. Like, last night would have been really entertaining. I should call him and record it during a game. But the day after, he's had time to come back down and Dow Jones it back to equal. All right, before we go today, Tinfoil had a proposition. Here's a test. Can you set this up in 30 seconds, Tinfoil? You get 30 seconds on the clock. Set this up, this debate. Well, there's no G's. Sure. One time I was on Starting Point on CNN, and I complained about my time, and Sold Out O'Brien said, you've got 30 seconds. That's an eternity in TV. Now that I've been doing it for a long time, it's an eternity. 30 seconds. On the clock, all right. Go.
So there's a young man who...
Quick.
Okay. There's a young man had a
20
prom
seconds
invite
left.
Okay. Young man trying to go to prom, used Bryce Harper as his wingman. What sports guy would you use as your wingman if you were trying to pick up a lady? Now, obviously, we're off the market, Will, but...
5 seconds left.
Right.
You know, who would we...
But we can pretend.
Yeah, we're pretending.
All right, we can pretend. All right, good job. He did it. All right, we're going to go around the horn. Young establishment James is out there. He's hot on the market. He's out there at the New York bars. But I'm going to bet he needs a wingman. So who's your sports wingman?
I am the wingman.
Young establishment.
Wow.
Does it have
okay.
Okay.
Does it have to be a guy?
Any sports person. So like
that's a good
Clark
question.
is eligible.
Because you go with someone like Cameron Brink, and she talks to the girl. She's like, "Oh no, he's cool," and then you're in. That's half the battle.
That's really good.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Who's Cameron Brink?
She was the second overall pick in the WNBA draft.
She went to Stanford. Steph Curry's friend.
She does have pretty privilege.
Oh.
She's tall.
The one that
I
took
think
the
I know who you're
picture
talking
with,
about now.
the one that Ohtani made laugh.
Now I know who you're talking about. Okay, 2-a-days.
I was gonna go Jeets because just like by fall off, there's got to be some help there. But James pointed out that's an absolute mistake. I might go.
It's a horrific decision and says a lot about your personality.
Why? What, did I need that?
Because you're happy. Because you're happy to be a remora fish on Derek Jeter's shark. Like, whatever he doesn't eat, you're like, that'll be good for me. Thank you, Derek.
But his, that is a lot, is a high echelon, if you know what I mean. But anyways, I was thinking.
That's fair.
You know who'd be good? I'm thinking baseball. I'm just sticking with baseball. A guy like Clayton Kershaw, I think would be fun as a wingman. Because he's kind of like goofy.
No.
Kind of fun.
No girl knows who Clayton Kershaw is. She doesn't care.
Do.
That's Clayton Kershaw, my friend. He pitches for the Dodgers.
The girls I want to know will know who Clayton Kershaw is. That's what I'm saying.
What about Julian Edelman? He's a little shorter,
right?
So you're kind of in the same.
Well, because I'm 6'2" and he's what, like 5'10", so that would look good
and
for
he's
me.
Funny.
Edelman's the perfect.
He's kind of got a funny little like.
He's perfect wingman for Brady. That's the perfect Brady wingman. Because Brady's like, all good looking and unapproachable. But I would bet, I don't know what his game is like, but he's not the funny man. And now you've got your funny man, you got your Joker in the King's Court, in Edelman. All right, Tinfoil, who's your guy?
I'm going to go with the ultimate team player, Jameis Winston. He would be he's the perfect guy.
You would meet
wingman.
No women.
You're going to end up in the
Zero
clink.
women. Zero women.
Why don't you just date Jameis? Jameis isn't, be real. Jameis isn't your wingman. He's your goal.
I would if I could.
You can go steal crab legs together on your first date. There you go.
God, I've never seen anybody with a bigger man crush. It's the weirdest man crush ever because it's also like, it's not, I don't know. It's like his man crush is a little bit like Dan's. Like Dan's fine like feeding off of Derek Jeter. Patrick decided that the highest mountain in the world wasn't Everest. He decided it was like some mountain in Missouri. And he said, I'm climbing that mountain and planting my flag. It's Jameis Winston.
I'm telling you, look, he went on the Theo Vaughn podcast. I mean, he kills it. He kills it. He's very personable. And he's not going to overshadow you because he wants to help you out.
Now, here, I've crushed you, Patrick, but I'm going to tell you something. Of the three of you, I didn't anticipate the Cameron Brink thing in there, which I think Jameis might also be guilty of, not your wingman, but your goal at the end of the night.
2 stones, 1 bird.
I think yours is the best. In the spirit of the game, Patrick, I think yours is the best because I think Jameis is hilarious. I saw him on Theo Vaughn. I've seen him on Pardon My Take. The great thing about Jameis is I don't know if it's intentional or unintentional comedy. I don't know if he's in on his own joke. He is hilarious. And I think that, a lot of people, men and women alike, would gather around the table to see what Jameis has to say. But I'm right on this. You need a funny, somewhat non-threatening, big personality as your wingman who isn't a killer in the looks department. All right? So he is the shiny object. You are the catch. So I'm going to give you some examples. Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, that type of dude. That type of dude is your wingman, works for you because they want to be around him and he's funny, but ultimately, he's like an offensive lineman in the NFL maybe, but more fame. You know what I mean? But then they look over and they go, but that guy, hanging out with him, he must be fun too, Yeah. But you want to be better looking than the guy. You got to be better looking than him, so that they feel like they're not trading down. But you need the. I think Shaq would be a great wingman.
But does looks negate the fact that these guys are rich and famous? Like you could be better looking than them.
What do you mean?
Like you could be better looking than these guys, but they have more money and they're more famous than you.
But also, I think
does that negate that with women?
Girls look at social status and they're like, "Oh, you're hanging out with him? Must be somebody."
Right. Like if I'm seen with any of these guys, it's like that's a golden ticket right there.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, Dan, if you lose because your social status or your money isn't as big as your wingman.
Right.
That wasn't the right one anyway, to be honest. That, I mean, you don't want that catch. You're signing up for something real bad. Like if that's their highest priority.
Is that a life lesson from Will right
real
there?
Bad.
Life lesson.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that we're talking about getting married in this situation, but I would say even things short of marriage, you're signing yourself up for something that's a complete roll of the dice.
A lot of that in New York City.
I'll bet. You would know, young establishment James. One day we'll do a story time with James, and we can talk about all the bar hopping going on the Upper East Side.
Just give me a GoPro.
Because of course. Because, of course, young establishment James is on the Upper East Side. All right. That's going to do it for us today here on the Will Cain Show. I can't wait for Game 2, Game 3, Game 4 now. It's going to be Dial a Pete after every game between the Mavs and the Wolves. That's going to do it for us today here on The Will Cain Show. Download, like, subscribe, leave a comment. See you again next time.